Hello, and welcome to another live chapter reading of My Valentine's Day Cooking Match by C.A. King, as presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Graham. WK Love Radio, 96.9 FM. Welcome to the morning show here on WK Love. I'm Jenny Perkins, and my co-host is Tom DeMildy. The sun is shining brightly, and it's a lovely day here in the Cove. It is indeed, Jenny, Tom said, clearing his throat in a less than professional manner. We have a great show coming up for you today. Call in your requests, and we'll get your favorites on for you right after the news. Speaking of news, Tom, Jenny said, we've been handed a message directly from the mayor's office. Well, that certainly sounds official. It does, Jenny agreed, in a voice which brought to mind images of a rather large smile filled with perfectly white teeth. There will be an official announcement tomorrow about the new businesses coming to Cupid's Cove. An announcement about an announcement. What a novel idea. And about new business at that, Tom echoed in a less than enthusiastic manner. Do we have any idea what type? One new shop is guaranteed, maybe more, Jenny replied. Other than that, the only thing we know is the mayor believes this move will bring quite a few tourists to our beloved Cupid's Cove. As long as they bring their wallets, I guess we can allow them in, Tom chuckled. Let's not waste any more time on talk. We have all the favorites for you romantics coming up. Remember, WK Love puts the love in the airways 24/7. Music. Memories were less about the place and more about what happened in it. From where he sat, it was neither. Just an endless revolving door of work brought in by faceless assistants whose names had been long forgotten. That's how things worked in big business. It was an instantaneous make or break, if one got the opportunity at all. Not everyone made it past the initial interviews. Once hired, employees were either promoted after 2 weeks or fired. He'd gone through it, kept his nose to the grindstone, put in his dues, and made it out the other side. Most stories about the corporate world weren't quite so successful. Was it worth it? Was there a payoff? It took a while to decide, but the answer was no. That's why he was making a change, breaking away from the life his teenage self thought was perfect. It was the end of the corporate era and the beginning of a new one. The high-back executive chair spun for the last time, stopping directly before the nameplate which previously adorned the front of his door. Graham Crawler. No other words were needed. Everyone knew he was the marketing genius upon whose shoulders the company had rested for the better part of a decade. It was time for all that work to go to his own rewards. Life was built on carefully balanced chaos. Unnecessary waves only served to rock the boat, which always ended in seasickness. Without a plan, without structure, his daily routine would have been a little more than cups of bad coffee, scrolling through social media feeds, and naps. Having a workspace to call his own at one point in time gave him the will to accomplish more. It gave his life direction and purpose, even if it was only an extra large cubicle. He gave up everything, and in the beginning, receiving no recognition. Then he was fast-tracked to the top, grabbing opportunities left, right, and center. In reality, though, the rewards were cookie cutters. Not one was special. His office was no different than any other in the building, having been designed for comfort rather than style. Constructed out of dark woods and earth tones, it screamed relaxation. Behind an oversized desk sat a plush executive throne meant only for one person. Guest chairs, however, were purposely crafted to hold the same level of luxury, spreading the joy, or at least offering the right illusions. It took years for him to begin to see through the smoke and mirrors. It was time for a new plan. It was time to rid himself of the menial gifts bestowed upon him in exchange for making millions of dollars for other greedy pockets. Ring, ring, ring. The phone vibrated on the desktop, moving ever so slowly toward him. He watched it, debating whether or not to answer. Experience, intuition, both leaned toward the person on the other end trying to manipulate him into reversing his decision to leave. He'd had enough of that. Unfortunately, the chance it was a contractor working on his new business, having a problem in need of sorting, outweighed his dislike of past colleagues. Hello? Graham, The voice on the other end belonged to someone who was 1,000 times worse than a former co-worker or rival company trying to woo his employment. It was the woman with whom he shared what one might call a companionship, and, on occasion, his bed. "Divinea," he replied, "to what do I owe the honor? Perhaps I was wrong in thinking you were not speaking to me." "Well," Divinea chuckled mildly, "the silent treatment wasn't getting me anywhere. I thought it would bother you a bit more than it actually did." And now I'm trying to talk some sense into you," Divinea admitted. "You can't actually be serious about quitting your job." "I am," Graham replied, contemplating how long it would be before he pressed the image of a receiver ending the call. "I've never been more serious about anything." "You are insane," Divinea cursed. "You'll be giving up a salary others only dream of, hours that suit your need, a safety net for your future, a city full of life, and me." "I know exactly what I'm giving up," he sighed. "It's what I'm gaining that matters." "And what's that?" Graham held the phone away from his ear, avoiding the shrill sound of her protest and some silly list she was screaming. "Are you quite done?" Silence replied. "Good," he inhaled deeply. "Then I'll attempt to explain this to you one more time. I'm tired of being the sword and shield protecting the way another person lives. I want to be the king of my own castle, defend my own keep." "Oh, for goodness sake, Graham," Divinea huffed. "You aren't a little boy pretending to be a hero in a fantasy role-playing game. This is real life, and you are throwing yours away on a whim." "I don't see it that way," he replied. "I grew up in a small town. Back then, leaving was all I wanted, dreamed about. I longed for better and ended up here, a big city boy on the rise. For a little while, it was good. As I got older, wiser, I began to realize what I'd left behind. I never really gave that way of life a chance. I was too focused on how not to be like my family. The grass was always greener." I know, he agreed. "That's why I don't simply want one or the other. I want both. And I think I've created a way to combine the best of each. Can't you understand? I'm reaching for the stars. This is going to work. I'd stake my career on it." "You are staking your career on it and more," Divinea said. "I hope things turn out the way you want. I really do." But, she continued, "in my experience, no one ever truly touches a star, no matter how hard they try. People here know your name, know of your greatness, your talents. You have it good, better than most. Why risk that? I'm tired of watching the dreams of others come true while my own remain dormant." Graham pleaded for understanding. "I want the putty in my hands so that I might have the power to mold it in one direction or another." "Be careful what you wish for, Graham Crawler," she hissed. "When you figure out it's not all you hoped it would be and come crawling back, you might find everything you had belonging to another." A dial tone put an exclamation mark on her words. In a way, she was right. If things were to go south, there was no room for him to make an easy comeback. That's what made starting his own business a risk. Was it one worth taking, though? Letting out a breath of air, he cracked his knuckles before typing in the search bar of his browser. He paused for a moment, his eyes fixated on the first response. Cookie Match was popular enough to come up #1 on a long list of Valentine's Day sites, albeit the genius behind the idea had not been completely revealed. The site itself wasn't all that memorable. The words "Join Now" were all which were needed for the moment. A simple click took singles on a route toward finding their sugar-coated dreams come true. If he was going down this road, he wasn't about to go alone. He was bringing a long list of clients along for the ride. Opening a business in a small town was risky for the average Joe. He, however, wasn't in that category. It wasn't the residents he was hoping to attract. He was banking on people buying into love, the ones who would travel the ends of the earth for their ideal match. It was the perfect idea. It was the perfect timing. It was the perfect location. Cookie Match was going to hit home run after home run. A devious smirk formed as he reloaded the homepage and clicked the link a second time. People were already signing up without even knowing how the app worked. That's how desperate they were for love. Soon all would be made public. That's when the fun was really going to begin. The best app he'd ever created was almost ready for launch day. Chapter 2, Laura. WK Love Radio 96.9 FM. It's another great morning here in the Cove. I hope you're enjoying the weather, Jenny Perkins said in her usual radiant tone. We have some exciting news for you today. That we do, Tom DeMelde agreed, in a tone slightly lower than usual. Why don't we skip right to the point? It's a wonderful idea, Jenny replied. We've now learned that the first new business opening up in Cupid's Cove is, drumroll please, Tom rhythmically banged his fingers on the desk in front of them, a coffee shop. That was rather less dramatic than I and many of our listeners were hoping for, Tom said. I'm not sure what the mayor is thinking. Who are we to question? Jenny sighed. Do any of us really have the right or qualifications? We are the people who voted for him, Tom replied. We literally are the ones meant to question his judgment, or at least we will be come election time. I believe he is running once again. I'm sure we'll have all the details on the latest owner of the new hotspot by the end of the day, Jenny said, ignoring her co-host's comments. Remember, Jim Bishop is the heart of Cupid's Cove. On that completely non-political note, which is in no way reflective of the owners and staff here at WK Love Radio, let's dive right in with an array of your favorite love songs. Music. The car slowed to a stop on the gravel shoulder. Frown lines deepened on her otherwise wrinkle-free face, trembling fingers muting the volume to background noise level. Her life was falling apart. A badly ending relationship recently broke her mind, body, and soul. It was too fresh to deny. Social anxiety was creeping through her veins with sinister-like movements, a feeling she'd never experienced before. Taking a leave from college for a semester to sort through issues was an unavoidable necessity. There was enough on her plate without her father ruining the one speckle of good left in her life, Bishop's Bakery, the shop she ran with her mother. Why would he do that? The horn honked loudly, a direct result of frustration and hands landing a little too hard on the steering wheel. Anger was the only first wave of emotion in a long list. Others were coming, including a soaking of tears. She could already feel the unstoppable moisture escaping from the corners of her eyes. After sadness took hold, the roller coaster would continue on an up and down course until something much stronger dug its hooks under her skin. Panic. That was a big downward spiral. She searched the glove compartment for a piece of gum, coming up empty. She opted for the next best thing to chew on, the inside of her cheek. Her heart rate was already increasing. Air, oxygen, became increasingly hard to inhale. Before long, breathing would become erratic, to the point where hyperventilating looked like a piece of cake. A cold sweat dripped down her face, replacing the tears until the current episode passed. Continuing to drive was hazardous. The window slid down, allowing brisk air to wash over her in waves. Hair be damned. Today, the wind was an ally. Her body trembled, wanting to curl up in a fetal position and sleep life away. Instead, she rested her hand on her hands, still firmly attached to the wheel. Eyes closed. It was time to try a few of the meditation techniques another student, a shrink in progress, taught her. Most of the methods were completely useless, but they were all she had. Her case wasn't bad enough to warrant medication. Her problem wasn't serious enough to justify extra attention. Her mental health wasn't in trouble enough to sanction anything more than a long list of books dubbed as suggested reading, a few breathing techniques, and a deep self-reflection. For all their degrees, what did doctors actually know? Sure, the trigger was just plain old bad breakup. That shouldn't have made her emotions any less relevant. No one took so much as a single minute to learn the whole story before dismissing her condition as temporary, something she could fix. Only time could heal a broken heart. It was all so cliché. She shivered, pulling the collar up on her turtleneck, covering the bottom of her earlobes and the tip of her nose. With the car off, the temperature inside quickly plummeted, leaving her as numb as her emotional state was rapidly becoming. She exhaled, the breath of air instantly freezing into small clouds, drifting towards the open window. If only the rest of me was indifferent to change. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the chapter reading. Good night.